famous, voice actor, Hollywood actor, movie star. Don't believe all that. I'm a legend in my own mind. Hey, you know me better as the voice of some of the most popular cartoon characters in the world. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, Scrappy-Dappy-Doo, Puppy Power, like in Shaggy too. And you've got the Sullivan Project podcast. It's coming at you right now.
What's up, everyone? This is Harold Sullivan here, the Sullivan Project podcast. We got Chris. What's up, Chris?
What's up?
Not much. Trying to get back to, got the old opening back. Took me a minute there on the recorder. I think I accidentally recorded something, so there's two clips on there now. But hey, what are you gonna do? I'm blind. 2 years now, so kind of anniversary, 2 years. But it don't seem like it's that long, but it seems like it's been way longer. You know what I mean? Hey Google, what time is it?
It's 6:09 p.m.
6:09. Okay.
Yeah, 6:09.
6:30. So we'll go about 6:34 or so. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I'm getting used to that though. But just mentioning that anyway. Have you any questions about that you want to ask like a blind person off the top of your head? Something you thought of? You might want to know about me being different now, or how I deal with things or anything. Uh, you can ask if you want anything. Cool.
No, I don't have nothing right now.
Off the top of your head, okay. It's kind of hard to think about that because it's different,
Yeah.
About being blind. But I put this test out there to people who put on a blindfold for 24 hours and then see what you can do. Or even just for a couple hours, see how long someone can last with. Just close your eyes and just do stuff before you get frustrated. Or here's another thing: so if you want to be in my shoes, quote unquote, someone tie a blindfold on and then sit in a chair and or even with a wheelchair, but you can only move around a little bit and you can't take the blindfold off, and you got to see how long you can last without seeing anything and only being able to move just a little bit. And just see how difficult it is, even if it's just 30 minutes. Kind of like a challenge out there for people.
I can't even do 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, close your eyes and then just sit still and imagine that you can only reach a little bit. You can't really move away from the table too much. Uh, it's a mental thing too, being strong in the mind, because you go crazy sitting there thinking, what am I going to do? So but I was always mentally strong anyway, or I wouldn't have made it so long. So the fact that I'm still here, glory to God, right, on that one. But was your week good and everything? We did a podcast a few days ago, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We did a short one.
About butterflies and stuff. Well, that's it was about butterflies, but that's what I called it. But I mentioned butterflies as just the way nature and the animals adapt and stuff. But we talked about horror movies and other. I like to do a little bit of everything. That way, it's not just for one. Everybody can tune in and hear a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And you never know what we're going to come up with or say. And speaking of that, if you want to be on the podcast or you got anything to say to us or, questions, whatever, the Sullivan Project.
Comments,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah, or if you want to call in, the number is 724-513-1472. And then the social media is Harold Sullivan 78 on YouTube, Harold Sullivan 78 TikTok, and then Harold Sullivan period 35 Facebook. One day you'll memorize all that from hearing it so much. But what do we say about everyone has a story, right? What's the rest of it?
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, so you can't judge a book by its cover. Yeah, these are these things we have. This is the podcast, and we're just here for anybody. A voice to the voiceless. You ever heard of that? That means anybody can come on here and talk about it. Nobody's famous. We're not famous. Nobody else is famous. We're just people. Hey, let's just talk. Like people just sitting around chilling. And having whatever, having pizza and around the TV. Let's just talk. This is cool. This is how people learn things, and stuff. But yeah, we did that one, and then I did one a couple days ago, actually, about movie documentaries and then I did music movies. So I got I'm gonna piggyback off of that a little, see if you got any good documentaries and things, because I mentioned some, and then I have some news too about some stuff you might be excited about. What time did I say we were gonna go? 34 or 35 after. I gotta remember that. See some news. What else did I want to before I think that was the main thing before I get into the main parts there. But yeah, so I mentioned some documentaries in the last podcast. For instance, I forgot right after that because there's so many. But do you know of any good horror ones besides, of course, let's see, his name was Jason, the Friday the 13th one. I mentioned that one, right?
Yeah, we did that one.
I mentioned that. I mentioned that in the last podcast too, just to catch up. And then we did Never Sleep Again, the Friday the 13th, or the Elm Street one. Then there was 25 Years of Terror, a Halloween one that came out, uh, the 25th anniversary. And then I remembered the Kane Hodder one, which was a recent one. So I hadn't mentioned that. But To Hell and Back, the true story of Kane Hodder. So I got to mention that. I don't know if you seen that yet?
Kane, the what? Kane Hodder?
Yeah, about his life. Yeah,
No, I didn't see that.
it's on one of them for free now, Tubi or whatever. One of them
It's on
channels.
YouTube.
No, Tubi. It's if you have Xfinity, there's a couple free channels on there like Peacock and stuff, and there's one
Yeah,
called
my friend gets Peacock. I don't
yeah.
get Peacock.
There's Tubi is another one, and they have stuff on there, and it's called To Hell and Back, and it's about his whole life and how he got burned up, on a stunt. See, he didn't want people to know that for a while, but he almost lost his life, and that's why he has scars on his neck and his hands, and he. That's why he couldn't get a role like as a lead, like an actor. He had to be a stuntman for most of his career. But he's the best ever, whatever he's done. I mean, Jesus. But yeah, it's called To Hell and Back, the true story of Kane Hodder. So I had forgot to mention that. So I mentioned that one. Also, I have. There was a WWE Arrivals show that I forgot to mention last time. But WWE right now, the wrestling, they have like 5 or 6 shows going on, like documentary shows. So there was one called Rivals, which is like the best, rivals against each other. So that's one I forgot to mention that last.
Yeah, you didn't mention that one.
Yeah. So we got Rivals. We got that. Hey Google, what did I want you to remember? There's like 5 or 6 of them.
Here's what you told me. First, a supernatural Friday the 13th Kane Hodder bodyguard. Second, knockout this is at the Last Dance Rivals.
Hey Google, stop. Okay, the Knockout is a Mike Tyson documentary that came out like last year. I think it was like 4 or 5 parts. And it was really good though. Each part was like an hour, and it was about Mike Tyson's whole life and his career. And I like all these documentaries that are like this is real. This is stuff like when Mike Tyson was a kid, he was bullied, and one of the dudes actually took his pigeon. Mike Tyson, he had pigeons. He trained pigeons, and the dude took it, and ripped his head right off in front of him. Like, I mean, that's just sick. The stuff that. Oh, and then speaking of that, Kane Hodder mentioned he was bullied too when he was young, and kids used to throw up in bags and pop them on his face and stuff.
Oh.
Like, yeah, this is cruel stuff that kids. Oh, you never had nothing like that done to you when you were young?
No. No.
Oh, I used to have this one kid on the bus because they used to have. I used to have this little bubble van, like remember a special van, '80s van. They would have me get in with these ramps to drive up in. And this one kid, literally every day for a while, when he was on the bus, he used to spit on this dart gun, like this little rubber. They had them little rubber dart guns. That would shoot a rubber dart. And he used to spit on it and shoot it at my face every day. And the bus driver would turn his hearing aid off so he couldn't hear me. And I got home and my mom, I had spit like all over me. It's disgusting. And like that was just one of many things degrading that I've dealt with in the past. And people shouldn't have to live that way, but for a little while I had to deal with it. People were cruel. I won't forget that though. You know what I mean? So. What was I saying? Okay, so which one did I just say? Oh, Rivals. I forgot. Bodyguard. I didn't mention the Bodyguard yet. Oh, that's a music movie. You remember Whitney Houston, right?
Yeah,
That
Bodyguard.
that
Yeah,
was
I can remember that.
that was a good one. That's one of the first ones that was about a musician. That she sang, real, didn't lip sync, and it was kind of almost a true storyish. So I got to mention the Bodyguard. Bodyguard. Plus, I loved Whitney. I mean, she was an angel on earth, right? So Whitney Houston. It's a shame drugs and all that. She wasn't even but what 50 years old maybe. And then Michael Jackson, the documentary. This is it. Came out right after he died a couple years later. It was supposed to be he was getting ready to do his concert, a comeback concert. So this was all kinds of footage that they were shooting before he died. And I guess they said he hadn't slept for 11 days, Michael Jackson. Something like that. And he finally went to sleep because the doctor kept doping him up. He couldn't go to sleep, and finally he just slept and wouldn't wake up. And that guy went to prison, I think, the doctor. But that's another thing. He was only 50 something years old, Michael Jackson. But the documentary is great. I mean, but is it Michael Jackson? I don't know. I mean, because there's so many lookalikes, right? And people that imitate Michael Jackson. Would you even know if it was him or it wasn't, or if it was somebody else, some parts of it? Because it was like a lot of it was like he was in different outfits. They were cutting scenes together and stuff. But what it was brilliant, the parts that did have him. So, and there was parts with him like on stage singing and telling them how to direct a band and stuff. And I was like, man, this Michael and the moonwalk and stuff. Only certain things of Michael Jackson dances he did, like the moonwalk, only he could do it that way. Other people could imitate it, but when you see Michael, you know it's Michael. And so there was some of it that I believe was him, but he was very skinny. You know what I mean? Maybe 80 pounds. It looked like it was not much more than I
Yeah,
weigh.
he wasn't that big.
That was when he died. When he died, I mean, and he was pale white, like he had that makeup on, because he lost his skin. See, he had a pigment disease, and what happened was he just covered his whole skin to match instead of having blotches. Because I have seen people in the past that had skin disease, and they have different colored blotches on their skin, dark and white. So Michael just covered it all to make it even. That's what happened. So this is it. See, and then the Michael Jordan one, The Last Dance. You probably heard of that one. It was about.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, it was great too. It was about the Bulls last season, and they followed him around. And I was a huge Jordan fan, a Bulls fan, for his whole career. So, well, pretty much his whole career. The first couple of years, I was only like 6, 7 years old, so I didn't know who Jordan was. You know what I mean? But after that, but yeah, it was great. I mean, and it just showed how great of a winner he was, what he would do to win, and just how he was the best ever. I mean, and the coach and just all the players was with Jordan all those years. Like, it was great, but I don't want to ruin it for anybody. But if you're into sports or just like good people, or how you can overcome stuff, that's a good documentary there. Let me make sure I got all the documentaries. Hey Google, what did I want you to remember?
Here's what you told me. First, a supernatural Friday the 13th came hotter body. The last dance rivals. Third, false history Sunday
Okay.
church style travel
What
charities.
what time is it? You know?
About 6:20.
Okay. Okay. Okay, so we'll get to the news here. I'm trying to do all the horror stuff at the end. Dang, we got some motorcycles going by. Did you hear that? Something.
Yeah.
It wasn't much. It sounded like more like them. What's them fast ones? Them little speed ones called the motocross. That's what it kind of sounded like. We got people down here that ride them little scooters on the sidewalk, like that. I think they're just making drug runs, is what it is, because it's all hours. You know what I mean? So somebody's dropping off on a scooter that goes 20 miles an hour. And they're driving down the street, like that guy on Dumb and Dumber. He had that little bicycle or that little motor scooter. Remember, he's going down
Yeah.
the highway. The bugs are getting in his mouth and stuff. Yeah, but so Supernatural. I'm gonna talk about that to let people know. What was I gonna say about that? Oh, I heard a letter or an interview with Misha Collins. You haven't seen the show Supernatural, but one of the actors that plays Castiel, plays an angel. Actually, Castiel was an angel, but they took the name and made him Castiel in the movie or in the show. Because a lot of the stuff is based on true stuff, like in the Bible and other religions. Remember how I was explaining? So Castiel is basically an angel that takes over a guy's body because the guy just really has nothing left, and so because they have to have a vessel when they're on Earth, angels and demons, all that kind of stuff. They don't have a human form, you know. They're like a cloud or whatever. I don't know, but so basically this guy. So anyway, in the interview, he was probably on the show 10 or 11 out of the 15 years because he didn't come in right away, and he explained how he when he auditioned, he was auditioning for the part of a demon, not an angel. So he had to twist everything around. He thought he was going to do one way, you know, and do something else. And then he actually, when this guy talks, his actor, the character, has a little bit of a gravelly voice, like, you know, my name is Cassiel, like that kind of. So he came up with that so he would sound different than his normal voice because he didn't want to just sound all happy. And he had to kind of sound confused because these angels haven't been here before. Like, so they're experiencing the human stuff or different, like, it's new to them. They're almost like a baby, you know what I mean? But they're a grown up. So it's neat how he's very simple. Like there was an episode on the other day that I was listening to again, and he was happy because he got a decoder ring out of a box of cereal, you know. But he's like a little, he's an angel. He's a guy. He's a full grown guy, but he's like looking for the because it's the first time he gets to taste food. You know what I mean? And it's neat. If you think about it, the angels, they don't have taste buds and stuff because they're in a different thing. So they come down here and but that's in the show. But yeah, and then he talked about how years later he called in and pleaded.
6:24 p.m.
Oh wow, my phone's
Swipe
talking.
up to unlock.
I don't know why this phone does this.
91%.
I haven't even touched it, but it scares me sometimes. It just starts to talk out of nowhere. Jesus. But yeah, he said years later he called into the show, like, because he was on the show just once in a while after that, and he kind of was like, well, just the fans actually liked him enough, and he kind of pleaded a little bit and actually got a job being a reoccurring character. And if he hadn't done that, I mean, the show would have been so different. But with shows like, especially when they're starting off, they'll have a character on there for just a couple episodes, and if they don't feel like the fans like them or it's going anywhere, they'll just cut that character out completely and they'll never bring him back. So the show would have been so different because he hadn't been on there. It was 10 or 11 more seasons that he was on there. And then he was talking about how he came up with little neat things like how he said he's an angel, right? So if he wanted to knock somebody out, he could just touch them on the forehead with two fingers and they would knock him out. So he had to figure out all these little things to do things to heal people, like so many fingers, or you touch them on the shoulder to go into their body. Like there was little movements he had to do. Uh, so you know what he was doing, you know, and then they add the effect in later on. But other than that, he's just touching the guy on the forehead. But they had to like have a movement to bring across what is he doing, you know, because he's an angel. He's using some kind of power.
Yeah.
So it's neat how he came up with them ideas, and you can't just say, "Hey, I'm healing you," and heal like you have to touch them or do. You know how Kane Hodder, when he's Jason, he turns his head a certain way. He uses his shoulders up and he breathes with his ribs up. Like he has these little movements without talking vocally, but you know his emotion. Like it's neat. So that guy he came up with that. And then yeah, so we're gonna lead right into, since I mentioned Kane again. So I have some news on Friday the 13th finally. There just hasn't been anything, and I've been searching. So when that book came out years ago, Crystal Lake Memories, they mentioned a show called Crystal Lake Chronicles that they were going to try to start in production, and it never picked up. So now, online, they're saying there's two Friday the 13th projects right now that they're gonna start on. One's a TV show. Peacock is picking up one called Crystal Lake. So
Peacock is.
yes, so that's good news. I mean, because they ain't meant for Friday the 13th fans to have something coming out here. I don't know any details or what it's going to be set, or if it's just going to be like the town, like in Erie, Indiana, with weird stuff happening, you know. It has to have Jason, though. You can't just have like a town that's haunted or cursed, you know what I mean? Put some more into it or something. And just don't turn it into a new Scream. Like, don't turn it into some, a new teenage show like Archie or whatever, Hilldale. Is that what it's called? And then have a kill, like, just campy. Don't make it stupid. You know what I mean? Don't do that. And then another one is a new Friday the 13th slash remake reboot. They're calling it again, and Sean Cunningham is supposed to be taking the lead on it. So I don't know what he's going to do with that one. So we actually have a movie and a show. And Adrian King, who played Alice in the first one, has confirmed some of this online. So I don't know if she's going to have a part of any of it, or maybe direct or produce. But this is the big news for Friday the 13th right now. So I'm happy to hear anything, because there's nothing on any other. So that
Yeah,
sounds
there's
good.
nothing else on.
Yeah, there's no news on any other franchises either. I've been checking all the time. I ask constantly. I look it up online on Google. Nothing on Freddy. This has just popped up. Two things on Jason recently. So nothing on Michael Myers. Of course, they ruined that all anyway. And same with Leatherface. They've been talking about Gremlins 3 for a while. Well, Gremlins TV show, but that's just still doo doo. So, and that's how that is though. But I'm glad we got news on Friday the 13th though, because I would love. It would be so cool if they could get Kane to come back too. Come on, fans, right now, whoever's hearing this, put it in. Start the petitions now. Sign Kane Hodder up as Jason. He got screwed too many times. Jason Kane Hodder is Jason. If they get enough people, 100,000 signatures, you know what I mean? They can't. What are they gonna do? They have to bring him back. Kane Hodder is Jason. Part 7, 8, 9, 10. You know. Speaking of that, since we're on, what time is it? Almost 6:30.
Yeah, it's getting there. Yeah,
What is it now? 6:30. 27.
about that. About 6:28.
Okay. Well, let's see here. Well, let's go into the horror thing. We were writing that story because we got to remember that comic. We're coming up with Dr. Loomis stuff. Let's do a little bit of that before we get off. That way we'll have a little bit of worked on that. So I figure if it ever gets done, I'm gonna need someone to do the pictures now, but because I can't draw anymore with the loss of the eyesight. But so it'd probably be 6 issues, right? 6 issue. So I got 5, maybe 6. So let's see what you think of, because I want to write this co-write with you. We got to come up with some of the ideas together. So of course we'll do a Friday the 13th story. We'll do a Freddy story. We'll do a Leatherface, because I want to do kind of Dr. Loomis meeting, the main. And it's a comic, you know what I mean? So we can do that with a comic. But so we do Freddy, Jason, Michael, Leatherface. That's for. I got a Candyman, an idea for a Candyman too, which I always liked Candyman. He's so psychological and creepy. You can do a good story with Candyman in it. Candyman. How many is that? 5.
Yeah, at least that.
That's 5. Candyman, Chucky, or not Chucky.
Candyman, Chucky.
No, I didn't say Chucky yet. Candyman, Leatherface, Michael, Freddy. Oh boy. Candyman, Leatherface, Michael, Freddy, and I think I didn't say Chucky, but that was another one. So it would be cool just to write a story about a killer doll coming to life. A different original idea. I mean, not totally original, but I think that's just a cool idea. The original idea for Chucky, the original script was the boy was going to cut himself, and the doll was going to cut it and put the blood, and that was going to bring the doll to life. The blood mixing together like blood brothers, and that's before he even came up with the whole Charles Lee Ray and which is a way better idea of Charles Lee Ray and him being a killer and then putting his soul into the doll. That's so much better. Can you imagine if it would have just been a doll and the boy cut it himself and mixed his blood with the doll, and like that was like a cult? That would have been like a satanic cult type movie.
It would have been like a pact.
Weird movie, yeah. So that was one of the original scripts, and actually, I love the whole opening to the with the doll in the factory and the lightning striking, and that. I mean, that's just that opening is just way better. The one we have, where he puts his soul in it, because you don't know if it's going to work or not till he gets the doll home. The boy, and you don't know, and it's just neat. the bum selling the doll in the alleyway. That's pretty cool. But okay, yeah, for the sixth one, so that'd be five. So I was kind of torn, yeah, between the sixth one. I was thinking of maybe a Scream type, uh, just like Ghostface, because it's a regular killer, but it's good writing. You could do, or maybe have two killers. Spoil, unspoil, because there could be more than one killer. So, or there's so many other ones to do as a sixth story. But I think, what do you think of? Not in those particular order either, though. You know what I mean. But do you think Leatherface or not Leatherface, Ghostface is a good, could be a good story with a way to involve Doctor Loomis, and then somehow Ghostface. There's a Ghostface killer. You know, I thought of that, or maybe a Hellraiser. But Hellraiser, I mean, that's been done so many times. And who else? Unless it's just somebody that's not really well known. Who else is there really to add in there? Right? Do you think of anybody else? There really isn't anybody else, right?
No, they're not really.
Except for Hellraiser, but that's just, yeah, there's too many.
That's just, yeah, that's...
Yeah. Scream could be good, though, because you could do, there's so many pop-ups and just ways to do the calls and, just the little things that they put in Scream, to make it Scream. And then the different killers, and then the little nods. So that could be an idea for the sixth. I don't have it, but I do have an idea for plots for pretty much most of the other ones. So we could figure that out, and that could be one of the six stories. But it's just basically Dr. Loomis, writing down a journal of these different, his different things he's done. And so happens that he's met all these characters. So he'd be like a Van Helsing. You know how Van Helsing was involved with kind of like the most universal, like Dracula and Wolfman and the Mummy and all that. He's associated with them, even though I don't really remember him meeting them. But Van Helsing killed like the monsters, all them kind of monsters. So we would make Dr. Loomis like that, where he can meet Michael Myers, and then he meets Freddy later, and he runs into Leatherface somewhere along the line, or something like that, So, okay, well, there's stuff to go on, then we'll just work on it a little bit at a time, come up with titles or whatever, just a little bit, and then just see what happens. It's something to do. I think does that sound good? Do you think does Ghostface sound like a possible good sixth one? Or one of the sixth, for now?
Could be.
Okay, we'll do that for now. That way we have an idea and see how that goes. And this is just ideas, and then, what I mean, if we could ever get it turned into something one day, then we'll have that. But I got so many ideas here. I mean, I even had an idea for Darkman meets the Ninja Turtles. Think of that. How cool that would be. If you ever know who Darkman was, right?
Yeah, briefly.
Yeah, he was a good... Sam Raimi and Liam Neeson.
Sam Raimi did that.
Yeah, Liam Neeson played the first one, yep. Very good. Check out Darkman, anybody... anti-superhero, but he was a superhero, kind of. But, yeah, we'll be back, right? Love is a choice, and so is the hate. And what else do we say? Be the light, right?
Be the light. Don't judge a book by its cover.
And we'll be back, same bat time, same bat channel. I added that in, but sometimes I'll say it. We'll switch it up. All right, man, we'll be back. Love y'all.
Yeah, y'all have a good time, yeah?
Yep. Like the Beverly Hillbillies, right? Hey, that's what we had.